everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Understanding Today's Options for Streamlining Document Processing. I'm Teresa Resick, Vice President, Market Intelligence here at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's event. And OpenText is the underwriter of our event today, and we thank them very much for their support, and certainly thank you for taking the time to join us. And as we get started, just want to offer just a few pointers to help you participate and be part of our webinar today. And just as we are getting started here, look to the chat feature. Go ahead and open that up, and just right now, go ahead in there and tell us where you're joining us from. It's always nice to see where in the world our audience is listening. And also in this chat feature, throughout our time today, we're going to put a couple of links in there. Most importantly, one we're going to share with you is a link for resources. It's a separate web page that we've built out, and it has just some links for some good additional learning and just some ways to find the resources that our presenters are going to be sharing with us today, and also a few things from AIIM in there as well. Do ask questions of our presenters as you go along. As we think about it, go in either the chat feature or Q&A and just go ahead and type your question. We do have a chunk of time reserved at the end of, towards the end of our webcast. So please ask your questions and we'll get to as many of those as we can towards the end of our time today. And towards the end of our webcast, we do have a feedback survey that we'll either put the link in the chat feature for you, but also it will open at the very end of our webcast. I always value what you have to say and your thoughts and opinions. So let us know what you think about what we talked about today in this feedback survey, but also you can suggest other topics for us to cover as well. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to AIIM.org's Resources Learning Center page in just a couple of days. Always happy to introduce my host and MC with our webinars here, Kevin Crane. And Kevin is AIIM's content strategist, and he is the author of ebooks and infographics on a wide variety of intelligent information management and digital transformation topics here at AIIM. He is the producer and host of AIIM On Air podcast, and that podcast was recently named on Forrester's 100 Best Channel Podcasts of 2021. So I just want to say hello, Kevin. How are you today?
Hello, Teresa. It's great to be here. Thanks for hosting yet another great AIIM webinar, this time with our friends from OpenText about how to boost ROI and streamline document processing with intelligent capture. And look, despite so many advances in technology and process automation, the promise of a totally digital business is not yet a reality. In fact, many organizations still manage key processes, including records management, on paper. According to our research here at AIIM, one of the reasons why is a lack of understanding of paper-free options. And this includes what capture technologies do beyond simply connecting the scanner to an information management system or a line of business application. So that brings us to the concept of intelligent capture, an approach using an automated workflow that can help us boost our ROI and streamline processes like onboarding new customers, processing high volume client requests, and digital mailrooms. So the question is, what can we do to capture the advantages of intelligent capture? And that's what we'll be exploring in today's webinar, approaches that will enable our organizations to automate the capture and sharing of and management of information. I know I'll be interested to learn about how intelligent capture is used for things like case management and client onboarding, and where AOI and machine learning fit into the overall picture of intelligent capture. And which technologies and capabilities should we consider that will really give us a competitive edge and really streamline processes in a meaningful way. So let's take this opportunity today to learn from our guests, starting with Jim Hayes. Jim is a product manager for capture technologies at OpenText. Jim's worked in an international environment for the majority of his 26 years at OpenText. including being the Director of European Alliances and Sales Director for Eastern Europe, but also in the US as a Director and Product Specialist for the US and Canada. So he knows the industry. He is joined today by industry analyst Ralph Gammon. Ralph is a senior analyst at InfoSource, and you may know him as the longtime editor and publisher of the Document Imaging Report. So, gentlemen, welcome to the event today. Ralph, I'm going to hand it over to you. Can you take it away and tell us a little bit more about your perspectives on intelligent capture?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Always a pleasure. And yeah, thanks for everyone for attending. At InfoSource, I mean, we track market trends. So we look at, what's going on in the capture market. We acquired Harvey Spencer Associates a couple of years ago. So we have a lot of historic data, and then we try to project what's going on into the future as well. So I'm going to kind of go over some of the major trends, and then, I've worked with Jim at OpenText for several years in a few different roles, and try to get an idea from OpenText as to what are they doing? Where's the rubber hitting the road? How are they addressing these trends? And the first one here is, as you can see on the screen, is that the capture market was very resilient during the pandemic. A lot of this had to do with the idea of digital transformations, which really did not slow down, or slowed down slightly. We saw about a 5% growth overall in the capture market during 2020. And in 2021, we're still compiling our numbers, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit healthier even than that. The one trend you will see here, though, is, and this was happening even before the pandemic hit, it kind of took a sharp downturn during 2020. We're expecting it to bounce back. But this idea of on-prem, these big back office, people couldn't get on site. So a lot of those projects were delayed, but what we did see was a strong increase in this idea of front office, on-demand, cloud type applications, a lot of stuff to enable the distributed workforce. And we also saw the RPA market was surprisingly very resilient during the pandemic, and that's starting to carry a lot more capture sales through that in the BPM market. So Jim, you want to talk a little bit about what OpenText has seen over the past couple of years in terms of how the dynamics of capture have evolved?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Ralph. And thanks, Kevin and Teresa, for the introduction as well, and everyone for joining. We've seen, same thing. So strong transition. What we saw in any case was a natural development of capture, automated capture, moving from the mailroom more into distributed, and even pushing capture out to end users or actual customers. This was really accelerated through the pandemic as organizations had to push capture out to even home offices. So a great example of this, like a use case, was mortgage. As the Fed dropped and worldwide interest rates dropped to kind of boost the economy, a lot more interest in refinancing homes, property, businesses, pulling money out to make other investments. And the challenge that organizations had at this time, a lot of our largest customers are in the mortgage loan processing, the largest one here in the US as well, is that moving quickly to process these loans was difficult because they didn't have as many people in the centralized mailroom environments. So they had to push a lot of this approval process. The scanning part was still done centrally, but they were importing a lot of different PDF and different types of information. And then the indexing and actual sorting of the information, a lot of that had to happen at home with remote users. So what we saw, again, to kind of complement this market research, is a big push towards remote or decentralized capture in this time. Another push was a lot more with machine learning, because you didn't have the developers in-house. So how can you leverage machine learning to pick up on new doc types? So processing a lot more mortgages, more variations in forms and incoming supporting documents with less people. And you do that through automated capture. Thanks, Ralph.
Yeah, and then, okay, so kind of related to that, I mean, capture is not, I mean, we've seen ECM repositories, we've seen stuff like CRM, some ERP moved to the cloud a lot faster than Capture. Part of that because a lot of the Capture is installed in these financial services, large financial services that already have infrastructures and maybe are worried about security or performance issues. But with the pandemic, we had been anticipating more cloud Capture services adoption. The pandemic kind of was the tipping point for that, we think, and we started to see. If you look in 2020 here, our on-prem stuff is basically this bottom, as well as the perpetual licenses, as well as the subscription, but not hosted. Whereas the purple is the hosted Capture services. So you can still, that was even in 2020, that was still about 3-to-1 almost in favor of on-prem. But 2020, it's just continuing to grow, and we expect the cloud adoption is continuing to grow, and we expect that continue to move forward as some of the more mature players like OpenText, they start to move more of their technology onto the cloud and kind of create these hybrid environments. And we're also seeing some startups, some cloud first startups enter the market that were not there a few years ago. So Jim, you want to talk about what OpenText is doing, to kind of transition more to the cloud?
Absolutely, Ralph. Yeah, and I think that 3-to-1 ratio right now, even 2020 to 2022, is holding. We're seeing a lot more growth in cloud interest as well as deployment. What you do see as well, though, these large existing mailroom environments or Capture environments are kind of characterized with a heavy footprint of scanning Capture devices, servers, personnel at these locations, and a lot of expertise. So they're really trying to drive the most value out of these existing systems by automating those systems and then leveraging over time new technologies, AI, machine learning, RPA in the cloud, and then partnering and creating these kind of hybrid environments where you have the best of both worlds. So leveraging that on-prem existing investment while also reaching out to the cloud, implementing different services, Capture services, and really innovative technologies from the hyperscalers and from other partners to maximize on value. So you're seeing a lot of that, and generally a slow transition move to the cloud. In net new opportunities, we are seeing a lot of kind of a cloud first approach. So what solutions would we offer, and how do we come to market with a cloud first approach? So again, that we see the market transitioning, existing large customers transitioning interest towards the cloud, net new customers, we're seeing a lot of cloud first initiatives.
And kind of, related to this idea of digital transformation, and people think as the cloud as part of that, but what's even accelerating more quickly than the movement to the cloud in the Capture market is this idea of omni-channel input. I mean, for years you had, scanners and MFPs. And if you look back in 2016 here, I mean, that's 70% of what's being onboarded into Capture software is coming from those two sources. But the biggest growth that we've seen is really this idea of PDF attached emails, for instance. I mean, that's growing rapidly. The pandemic has accelerated that. Other types of electronic input sources, we're starting to see more mobile input. A lot of that just as simple as taking a picture of a document with a phone. Fax continues to be a lot of healthcare, government people use fax. A lot of that came up during the pandemic. So it's really the idea of a Capture application now is really not being able to get all your stuff in one place and scan it all, but it's really to have this multi-channel, have FTP servers, email addresses, fax servers, all this, these various sources, bring them together and really kind of sort through these multi-channels with a single Capture application. This is kind of Jim, if you would, kind of the modern digital mailroom.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Ralph. I know we were kind of joking before with Teresa and Kevin about the idea of the digital mailroom being with these large machines that open envelopes and remove scanners and things, or remove staples from from the paper before it goes into the scanner. So that is kind of, you can think of that as the traditional mailroom, this high volume paper-based world that we came from maybe 20 years ago. Now, as you mentioned, we've seen this rapid transition from the 80-20 rule of paper and fax being 80% and electronic being 20, email and attachments, to it actually flipping the other way, where you're having 80% of incoming information. And not to mention the vast growth of information in new incoming documents being electronic. So EDI for invoice processing, electronic mortgage processing. If you remember in the past, almost everything you did on a mortgage application was paper-based and signing documents. Now it's about 80-90% of a mortgage is electronic. There's still some paper-based or actually physical signing that's required, but probably 80 to 90% of that is now similar to the market trend, electronic filing. So we're really seeing that transition as well. Also, the ability to handle existing data flows from different multifunction devices, scanners, remote scanners in the field, and again, importing all these different electronic data types.
So related to that, as Jim's talking about, as different data types, what we're seeing is really kind of a diversification of capture. This is the way moving forward. I guess in the past we kind of tracked the market. Where was it installed? Back office batch. Was it ad hoc? Was it in the cloud? Okay, that's one way we're still going to track the market. What's more interesting to us now as capture becomes more flexible is how is capture being used? Historically, obviously, records management has been a big use for capture. You go through your process. You might have some simple workflow steps, but basically you were trying to get your document in a repository, or you're trying to get some data off it, which, as we got more into the data entry part of it, a lot of it was forms, and then invoices and accounting applications really kind of took off. And that's kind of where probably, that's probably where the largest swath of the capture market is right now. But going forward, as we introduce more types of AI and more types of diversified management, and capture becomes more flexible, you can insert capture in the middle of a workflow. You can start a form, start some application type thing on your mobile phone, and that says, well, hey, I need some documentation. Okay, so I scan that, and the ability to apply AI and machine learning to understand wider, larger, more complex document sets, to put a human in the loop. This is this idea of case management. I mean, some examples: onboarding, fraud detection, loan approval, underwriting and claims and insurance, government social services, all this type of stuff. I mean, this is where we see capture really growing, moving forward. Jim, you want to talk about maybe some of the, I know OpenText is quite a big tool set when it comes to not only advanced capture, but also workflow and the ability to address various types of cases. You want to talk about some of the case management applications that you're seeing in the market?
Absolutely, Ralph. And we differentiate the capture workflow from kind of the downstream ERP or like a workflow within SAP or within content management system. That we call that the workflow itself or the business process. And we differentiate the capture part as a capture flow. So basically, we're leveraging capture flows to map to a business process to trigger or initiate downstream workflows within the business system. So within the capture flow itself, that's kind of where our area of focus is today for this conversation, is taking these like case management examples, like an onboarding. And onboarding is kind of a life cycle, right? So you could have a new customer come in, you onboard them into like an example of like retirement processing. So one of the largest financial organizations in the world is a 401k provider in North America that's processing not only 401k but also 529s for college education funds. And basically, they're onboarding a customer. And then that customer, you would basically be onboarding new document types over time for the 529 application or for the retirement fund. And then within that, you could onboard new document types to take a loan against your retirement fund, or new document types to take money out of the 529. So this whole concept of case management is probably the better word than onboarding, because onboarding, we see it kind of as a life cycle of transactional processing for that user. But the idea is that this had, in the past, had been similar to our discussion around digital mailroom, very centralized in location and processing. Usually takes, 5 to 10 days to process a doc type, a loan request, a request for 529 fundage, or funding for a college expense, things like that. And now basically what that organization has done, they pushed capture out to their remote locations. So over 200 locations throughout North America, where you could go in and bring your documents in, get a loan against an existing retirement policy. And they've also added the ability to do this directly with the end user, with the customer themselves, through a mobile device. So now you can take a picture of the document, your W-2, if you want to buy a new car or do an improvement on your home and take a loan against your retirement. Very easy to do that now by taking pictures of the supporting documents, sending them in to the organization for processing in real time, and have a real-time validation and confirmation that you have loan approval. So this is a great example of taking case management from a centralized environment, pushing it out to remote or distributed environments, and then from there, pushing it directly out to the customer for real-time interaction. So that's really where we see this kind of case management and onboarding going, is creating a real-time interaction with end users and customers.
And Jimmy, you make a good point that it is something we definitely see in the market, is this idea of compressed service level agreements, or compressed SLAs. I mean, people, because everything's so digitized, people expect stuff to get turned around faster. So, and being able to push capture out to the edge helps facilitate that.
That's right. From 2 to 3 days to 2 to 3 hours, or 2 to 3 minutes sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the pressure. I mean, we've seen a lot of that as you look at the mortgage market, how that has been revolutionized, and it's moving, clearly the traditional brick and mortar banks are under pressure from some of these the faster mobile banking apps. And so here's kind of, this bit of an eye chart here. I apologize, but it's really designed to show you the how we see capture kind of evolving, and we think a lot of people right now at this, still at the stages 1 and 2, where you're basically digitizing the document, creating some index filling, and maybe you're automating some data entry and doing some simple workflow. The market, we think, is really able to address kind of this stage 3. We talked about where multiple documents come in, maybe to a single capture server or a single capture type implementation, and then depending on what kind of document it is, they're shot off in various directions for customized. Either it's automated processing, it's a human in the loop making a decision, but really individual workflows depending on what type of document is being identified coming in, and kind of the ultimate direction where we see capture going is this idea of full end-to-end automation. It's really just part of a process. I mean, obviously, underwriting a mortgage or a claim or something like that, yeah, capture is part of that. But if you take the capture technology and you apply AI, you can apply AI to some of the workflow steps in between to help make decisions on, whether someone can be automatically written for a mortgage, or whether it needs to be seen by somebody, depending on the value, depending on the patterns of that type of characteristics of that type of document. How has that been handled in the past? And obviously, this idea of end-to-end automation, no one vendor is going to be able to do that themselves. This is where value of strong partners come in areas like ERP, where I know, for instance, OpenText has a strong partnership with SAP. Really help expand capture into more than just a point solution, and really part of this end-to-end automation idea. So, Jim, you want to talk a little bit about how you guys are addressing this movement towards end-to-end automation?
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. And what we see, and it's surprising if you think about this kind of from a digital maturity in the capture space, probably still over half of even the larger capture environments, these large digital mailroom environments, are still in the, phase one, phase two, of basic manual indexing, a lot of manual processes. And this is largely based on kind of cultural, we still like paper. There's still kind of a culture of manual processing, sorting, barcodes, patch codes, separator sheets, indexing, looking at the document. If you get an invoice, printing it out, looking at it physically as a paper copy. So there's still a lot of this going on, but obviously almost every organization is trying to look towards, future, the 2B environment is phase 3 and phase 4 of fully automating these paper processes, eliminating the culture of manual exception handling and pushing files and papers around, and really getting to the point where there's what we would call pass through or straight through processing from the capture flow directly into your workflow. And as you know, we're a leader in processing and invoice processing and paper and capture of all types of incoming information in SAP environments as well. And invoices make up a big part of that. So we have our vendor invoice management system that's been successfully implemented in thousands of SAP environments worldwide. And what we found was that it's a lot more than just invoices that folks are interested in. They want to use machine learning, not only to recognize variations, use the machine learning within our solution to recognize variations in invoices, but also recognize the variations in new document types on the attachments and supporting information, even within HR and AP. It started in AP, HR, multiple line of business applications that want to use machine learning to recognize variations in new document types as they come in. And they also want to then use the OCR extraction or optical character recognition, OMR for checkbox recognition, and even ICR for handprint recognition to automatically extract all that incoming information. So again, AI, machine learning, RPA, they all fit into this world of 3 and 4 here in your chart, Ralph, and talking about advanced capture, full end-to-end straight through processing. You're only going to get there with advanced recognition, automatic, recognition of doc type and extraction, and then leveraging machine learning and AI to automatically understand the documents as they enter the organization.
And so how do you bring all that together? This is where we see, on-prem capture is great. We know it works, but how do we improve the capture process, right? We can do great stuff with scanning high volumes, and once the stuff is digitized, we can do a lot of extraction. But as Jim talked about, you want to get to some handprint or something like that. Well, maybe that's not as standardized in a capture package. So I go out to a Microsoft or a Google or one of these computer vision standardized containerized cloud services and able to call that down to my capture application or integrate that with my cloud capture, however you want to put it together. We really see standardized containerized services really helping to bring to bear kind of this idea of best of breed, within the application. And then where else, is the market heading? Obviously we've already seen, this explosion. If you look at the top, this explosion of AI and machine learning. This was something we didn't talk about 5 years ago, but now, we have OCR, but then we also have all this wonderful pattern matching and machine learning that can be used in conjunction with some of the traditional rules, regular expressions, that type of stuff to really produce a greater accuracy type of system, and then being able to this idea of low code, no code deployment, being able to get a capture application up and running in a matter of days, or a matter of hours, rather than a few weeks when you want to onboard a new document type. Jim, you want to talk about how OpenText is kind of embracing this new this kind of evolving architecture of capture?
Yeah, Ralph. Yeah, thanks for the transition. Yeah, I think one way that we've positioned this from understanding the market requirements and what our customers are talking about, how they kind of talk about the transition to the cloud and how they're moving to automation, is you kind of have the first tier, and this would be the most fundamental, is using what you have now, especially through the pandemic and, not having the ability to add a whole bunch of new employees or new locations. How do you optimize what you have now? And a lot of these solutions, like our intelligent capture solution and core capture for SAP, they have existing machine learning already built in. So then the question is, how do you really leverage that, recognizing, like I mentioned, the new doc types, recognizing new forms, new fields that need to be extracted, and then integrating AI. For example, we have Magellan. We call that AI augmented capture, or it's sometimes called cognitive capture in the market. But the idea is leveraging machine learning and AI first within your existing environment. Then you have the ability to add these new technologies. So as kind of a separate layer, kind of similar to how we would partner with an RPA provider and adding third-party technologies to really enhance the recognition, functionality, and automation of that existing environment. And then the third layer would be basically reaching out to the hyperscalers and going straight to the cloud and pulling these new innovative technologies from the cloud as needed or as required based on the user environment and the use case. So really, I think you have those three tiers, Ralph. Leverage and use what you have, optimize it, take individual components and integrate those into the existing environment, and then reach out to the cloud for everything else, like this, some of the handprint recognition that we've seen in the cloud, really great quality coming back from handprint that 3 to 5 years ago, you would have said, no chance at recognizing that. Just manually index all that, like a dental form, with very poor quality handprint recognition. Now you're pulling that back from the cloud in quality that's 80 to 90% already extracted. So I think if you look at those three stages, it kind of helps to define the market.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. And that's the thing you can say, well, I talked to people, oh, we tried that years ago, it doesn't work. Well,
yeah,
there's just been such advancements in the last 5 years that, maybe now it does work. I guess that's what I've seen, at least.
Yeah, good point, Ralph.
Okay, Jim, you want to talk about some of the next steps for attendees?
Yeah, so I would say, definitely reach out. We're very, capture focused, Ralph and I, and AIIM as well. A lot of the market data is coming from AIIM that Ralph and I use. A lot of the market data I use in my day-to-day work and working with customers and partners is from Ralph. So, feel free to reach out to us anytime. My email's on here, open text, and then intelligent capture here to learn more about the products. Another thing we want to really boost is this. We're really excited. It's been 3 years since the last time I've been to the AIIM event, but it's basically online for the last couple of years, and we're really looking forward to being there in person. So from the 27th to the 29th, the AIIM conference live in person in Denver. Very excited to be there, and we're going to be hosting a customer roundtable event. And Ralph is also planning to be there. So really looking forward to that. And the idea behind the roundtable, I have one slide here, Ralph, if you can maybe bump forward one, is we're trying to bring in some customers that have these different use cases, and they're going to talk about, real-time document processing, real-time transactional processing, real-time onboarding. So this is a great one. This example is from Europe. Santander, this is a large bank in Southwest Europe. They are doing the financing for mobile phone contracts. So for the phone itself, the device, and for the contract. And what they found was they were getting a lot of people coming in. They wanted to process something, a contract. They wanted a new phone. And they had to basically leave and come back to get it. And anytime anyone left the shop, their win rate or their transaction, their conversion rate would drop dramatically. So through this online, or this really like highly automated capture solution from OpenText, and this is combining intelligent capture with Documentum XCP for the full suite of functionality. They were able to process, 70% of those people coming in could get approved in real time before they left the shop, and that would result in contracts. So again, the return on investment here is incredible because so many of the customers that would have left the shop, they don't know how much they lost. All they know is they didn't buy anything, are now executing and closing on a contract and on a device before they've left the store. So better customer service, better retention, better transition and getting them to actually buy something. And this is a great example. So what we're going to try to do here, or what we're working on right now, getting a lot of customers to this roundtable, Ralph, and really having this interaction and talk about best practices in these capture environments.
Yeah, it will be nice to see everybody in person there at the AIIM show. Yeah, after a couple of years, I haven't had been doing quite a bit of travel. My former job at DIR just started at InfoSource, and well, in the InfoSource software side, and yeah, we got hit with the pandemic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone out there. InfoSource, a little bit of background. I mean, kind of what makes us different than other analyst firms, and we have historical data both on capture software as well as printer and scanner hardware. So we really have a full picture of kind of this office automation space, and a lot of analysts will just kind of pontificate on things. We feel like we have historical data to kind of back up what we bring, and we try to work with our clients and help them chart their paths based on market trends and the type of stuff we're seeing. Okay, Kevin, want to kick it back to you here?
Thank you, Ralph. That is Ralph Gammon and Jim Hayes. Thank you so much for your perspectives and advice here today. We are going to open it up to our guests, our audience today, for any questions that you might have for Ralph and Jim. So please feel free to pop in your questions into the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll try to get to those questions here before the end of our session today. Let's take advantage of these experts while they're with us today. But Ralph and Jim, I have a couple of questions. And the first one is about how the use of intelligent capture and the techniques can help organizations adopt remote work.
Yeah, good question. Maybe I'll take that one. So that goes back kind of to our earlier example about the different use cases and moving what we saw basically as a normal transition from high volume centralized mailrooms to pushing work more out towards remote workforce. That was just accelerated. That natural progression was accelerated through the pandemic time. And basically what organizations are looking for is like really high security, no latency in the transition of getting images, documents, and metadata back and forth to the centralized system. So the ability to push a document out, have someone sort it, look at it, that's an invoice, that's a customer contract, that's a mortgage, understanding what type of document it is, and then also pushing it out to the right type of user. So the person who has the knowledge base or the knowledge worker that can index a mortgage document and know what the validation rules are. So that's really important, not just pushing a batch out to a user, but pushing the individual unit of information, the document itself. And what that does, it cuts down on latency, so you're going to have the ability to process a document immediately, and you're going to have the right person working on it, and you're not going to have any latency between the remote user and the centralized system, and it's going to be secure. So you have to get all those factors right in order to enable that remote capture environment.
And the only thing I'll add is that we move to more remote work. I mean, part of this is you lose somewhat control over the formats, over what's coming in, and capture is really about, being able to standardize or homogenize whatever you have coming in, all these various forms that we showed you earlier, and being able to take that, recognize it, and create it into something that your systems can utilize.
Now, as we look, here we are, almost near the end of the first quarter of 2022. As we look into 2022 and beyond, with intelligent capture, what are some opportunities on the horizon to maximize the techniques to not only save money and trim processes, but also to bring a new competitive advantage to organizations, maybe open up new markets and get an edge against the competition? How can I use intelligent capture to bring new competitive advantages?
Jim, I think you talked about some of this when you talk about customer service. I mean, when you can turn around, you talk about a cell phone contract in 2 hours versus 2 or 3 days. I mean, that's a huge competitive advantage that, and I talked about mortgages and, what we've seen. I mean, some of these large online mortgage companies, they have mobile apps, but behind the scenes, when the paperwork comes in, they're using capture. So it's like, yeah, so I saw the analogy yesterday. I was watching the HBO show on the Lakers, but they were talking about how swans, they're smooth on top, but they're paddling like heck under the water with their legs. And that's the capture technology, making these mobile apps run smoothly. So.
That's right, Robin. A good example that just came to mind, Kevin, is Agility Logistics. They're up on our website as well with the use case and the success story. But basically, they're expanding rapidly. They're having all these supply side, constraints as the rest of the market is as well. And their goal is obviously optimizing logistics, cutting down on turn times, inventory, all that, helping their customers be more successful. And they're expanding their business rapidly, but they can't hire hundreds of people in each new location, right? So they really have to leverage these automation technologies, as you mentioned, Kevin, to push better logistics out, reduce constraints and supply chain management, improve on that, while not adding thousands of new employees to do it, right? So capture is really, automated capture is a way of doing that.
We are with Jim Hayes, product manager for capture technologies at OpenText, and Ralph Gammon with InfoSource. And now is our opportunity to ask questions of these two experts while we have them on our event today. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat feature. Jim, you just mentioned a customer story, and there's a link to that in our resources section for any folks that want to check that out. Now, gentlemen, if I'm just starting out in adopting a more intelligent approach to capture, and you mentioned a number of techniques and products, but what are the important technologies and capabilities that I need to consider and bring into my tool set today in order to be effective?
I mean, I think first of all, you got to look at your processes, right, and say, okay, where do I need to apply capture? And then once you kind of start from I guess the inside out, right? Well, what are you trying to achieve? And then start I would say kind of picking the right tools, because there's so much diverse stuff out there. You really want to find something that can address your specific processes the best you can. I mean, it's going to be different if you have 50 people keying things than if you have 2 or 3 people keying things. Any thoughts on that? I know you guys address a wide range of customers.
Yeah, Ralph, and it kind of goes back to that maturity model that you pulled up, that slide earlier. We have really the basic capture is where it all starts. The ability to pull in paper, fax, email, attachments, PDF, and process those. The basic capture, that would be kind of our level 1 that everyone requires as the base model of whatever capture environment they have. Then you have advanced recognition, which is basically the ability to automatically classify or sort. So no longer having to have a barcode on every document or a patch code or a separator sheet to understand an invoice from a mortgage, from an HR document. But the ability to recognize that automatically, and that's advanced recognition. And usually OCR is part of that. Optical character recognition is in that advanced recognition stage. And then from there, you have kind of this, fully automated state of adding AI and machine learning and RPA in order to bridge the gap between, we've automated 80% of this to getting closer to that 100% automation rate, is is all about leveraging machine learning, AI, and RPA to get there. And then the last thing that a lot of folks kind of forget about is how do you integrate all of this with your business system? And this is where OpenText really kind of shines, even in your some of your market analysis, is the ability to execute. And this is really integrating and feeding these enterprise systems with real-time data that's been successfully captured. And that kicks off workflows within SAPs and Documentums, and even, you know, the largest content management systems in the world, or Microsoft, for, you know, for these collaboration environments. So the ability to really kick off these workflows is really that last segment that a lot of times isn't in focus, but it's extremely important to get value from the system quickly.
Jim, I'm glad you mentioned that concept of the ability to execute. And I know we're almost out of time, but before I let you go, I do want to ask one more question. Our members here at AIIM tell us that often it's not the technology or the availability of technology that gets in their way of being innovative. It's often the ability to manage the change or get the support that they need to begin with to launch an initiative, a digital transformation or a process automation initiative. What's your advice for our listeners that may be struggling with that kind of cultural part of getting the support and the recognition and the buy-in that they need in order to be innovative?
Yeah, I'll take that one first, Ralph, and maybe you could add. I think, you know, where we've seen the most success is, again, there's a cultural aspect, there's a business aspect, and there's kind of a technology aspect. So the culture of paper and capture, again, is kind of coming from that mailroom environment of high touch, high manual process. So you have to transition away from that I need to see the physical document mentality. You know, you have to transition towards an electronic, embracing the digital format of incoming documents and data. From there, also, you have the ability, really what I would say is leveraging shared services managers and leaders in shared services or managed services environments. And what I mean by that is a lot of times you'll have a liaison between the business and the IT department, which will be the shared services environment. And they're supporting multiple lines of business. So claims might be the holy grail of applications within an insurance company, but dental is an application within that, dental claims, that's a different line of business, but needs to be supported equally well by that capture environment. And who's going to bring that all together? It's the shared services leader or the managed services leader, and they're going to plug it all together. So they have to deal with the cultural aspect, the business requirement, and IT, and have a capture solution that's going to fit for all of those. Like, how do I automate away from the cultural paper issue? How do I automate multiple line of business applications? And how do I find one IT vendor that I can work with that can do all of this? So I would just say, you know, where we see the most success are shared services leaders that are really engaged with the business, IT, and understanding the culture of the organization.
Very good. That is Jim Hayes with OpenText and Ralph Gammon with InfoSource. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our event today. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa to help close us out. Teresa?
Well, thank you. And I promise I'm going to chat one more time with Jim and Ralph myself. I've really enjoyed hearing this conversation, but it was something else that they had mentioned in here was that they mentioned AIM 22 in Denver, and you know, most of the AIM staff are going to be there, and I will be there. And I look forward to seeing you there, because what we are cooking up for this conference, and as we said, we haven't been in a conference live in person in 2 years. It's going to be a very different type of experience. A lot of collaboration, a lot of peer connection, in addition to the wealth of learning opportunities that AIM always brings you with our conferences. So go to aimconference.com. All of our full agenda is all mapped out. It's up there. We're like 50 some days away. So counting down. I just bought my plane ticket today, so I will be there. But we have some fabulous keynote speakers lined up for this, a number of great opportunities. I encourage you to go to aimconference.com. It's the last week of April, the 27th to the 29th in Denver. Hope to see you there. And as I said, since we are getting to the end of this webinar hour, I very much want to thank OpenText for their support as underwriter of the event. Without support from our solution providers, AIM would not be able to bring you our free educational programs, just like this webinar here. We have been recording the webinar. We'll be posting the link to the replay on our website, and we'll also be emailing that replay link to everyone. I invite you to please take our feedback survey. That link has been posted in the chat. Another link in there has been the link to the resources. Please check all of those out. Just make it available for more ways to help you learn more and help you do your jobs well. So since we are at the end of our webinar time, I do want to ask each of our presenters for their key thoughts or just that main takeaway that they want to leave you with. So I'm going to start first with Ralph Gammon from InfoSource. What is your closing thought today?
There's a lot of talk in the market about, you hear AI and automation. And if you think about it, capture technologies have been leveraging, we haven't called it AI, but, a lot of this, learning, self-learning technology, and to automate processes for a long time. So it's really kind of an old technology that's new again. And there's a lot of, still a lot of unstructured input out there, though, where it can be applied.
Thanks, Ralph. And Jim Hayes from OpenText, your closing thoughts today.
Yeah, Teresa, I wanted to follow up on our discussion. Should we even use the word digital mailroom, because it's been around 20 years? It's kind of the irony of what's old is what's new, as Ralph mentioned. But really it's interesting, because when I first moved over to Europe, folks would ask me, "Did you move here because there's no more paper in America? So you solved that problem? So you're over here now selling capture and marketing capture solutions for Europe?" And I said, no, we still have tons of paper in the US too, right? Everywhere. But the idea is that we're automating more and more. We're finally starting to get to that 80-20 rule, which was paper was 80% then. Now it's 20% and 80% is automated. The irony again is the paper-based processes still remain, and we're automating those processes. And we're also adding electronic data streams and flows to these capture flows, so you can really get the most out of processing PDF, email, attachments, paper, and kicking off those workflows downstream automatically. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Jim. And Kevin Crane, as our host today, you've been, with your expertise and all the people that you get to talk with in our membership community, I just want to hear your closing thoughts from everything we've heard.
Well, look, we know about the technologies, we know about data capture, we know about image capture. The question really becomes, how do you capture advantages for your organization using intelligent capture? And it's really just understanding about how intelligent capture can be used for processes that drive your business every day, whether that's case management or client onboarding or many of the examples that were talked about here today. And looking at where the technologies are headed and where they can fit, where AI and machine learning can fit in the mix of your environment, in the mix of your strategies, and which technologies and capabilities really give you a competitive edge and really do help process improvement in meaningful ways. Sessions like this AIM webinar and others are a great place to get that grounding and move forward. And it's been another great conversation today. And so it's been a pleasure to be a part of it.
Well, on behalf of AIM, my colleagues Jess and Nina, I know you've seen them behind the scenes, you've gotten emails from them, but thanks with them and my partner Kevin Crane, and on behalf of OpenText and certainly InfoSource with Jim and Ralph, just want to thank you very much for your time today. Always appreciate that. And we will see you with our next event. So have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.